I'm going to read from the Dragons of Kilve, and this story is called The Day the Nidhogg Came. There's a Nidhogg. Now, a lot of people ask me what a Nidhogg is. It's a rather gruesome beast out of Norse mythology, which is why it's spelt the peculiar way, Nidhogg. And I just wanted a sort of mythical creature. I've no idea what a Nidhogg really looks like. And those of you who speak ancient Norse, I'm sure, and I know at least 3 people who are watching that might. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but it will do for now. The day the Nidhogg came. Winter passed and the days drew long again. The fishing was good and the skies were warm. The dragons grew fat and contented. No one argued, no one played nasty muddy tricks on anyone else, and Sparky hadn't asked why for a whole week. I wish it was like this all the time, sighed Horace. Someone's bound to spoil it, grumbled Maurice. It's bound to be Clarice, said Horace. Why? Asked Sparky innocently. Clarice was wondering whose tail to twist first, Horace's for being rude, or Sparky's for saying, why? Then the Dragon Master came puffing and panting up the slope. He sat on the grass and spread his wonderful cloak so the little dragons could curl up next to him. He usually did this when he was about to tell a story, so everyone was pleased. But this time there was no story. He looked serious. I fear the Nidhogg is coming, he said sadly. The older dragons glanced nervously at each other. You mean he's real? Asked Ember. I thought he was just in stories. He's very real, the Dragon Master went on. He's an earth monster. He isn't big. In fact, he can be difficult to spot. But when he does turn up, it's very bad news. What does he do? Gasped the little dragons. He nibbles away at the roots of everything we love, the Dragon Master sighed. He turns good things inside out and upside down. He brings chaos. Like my cave, chirped Sparky. The others promptly sat on him to make him shut up, but the Dragon Master smiled. Much worse than that. Now you'll have to look after each other when he comes, and always remember what you know to be true. The day the Nidhogg came was still. Not just calm, but eerie. The skies were silent, for all the birds had flown. The fish had swum away and the forest animals had slipped between the trees. And worst of all, no one knew where the Dragon Master was. Standing on his hind legs, Flamethrower flapped his wings and roared. Make the great circle, everyone, now! As they gathered on the beach, a thundering noise filled the air. A huge wave was rumbling ashore, swept by a howling wind. Closer and closer the wave came, until the sky seemed filled with water and the seabed was empty. The terrified dragons flew to higher land. Ember scooped up treasure just as the swirling water crashed and foamed around them, cracking rocks and lashing the cliffs. Everything was upside down and inside out. Wet and terrified, the dragons clung onto each other. They held their breath, and no one moved. Then Clarice snapped at Sparky for treading on her tail. Horace stepped out of Clarice's way and knocked Maurice downhill by accident. Maurice scrambled back up and thumped Horace. Forks and Fireworks argued about who should stand where. And through it all, Fizzle kept munching his chocolate biscuits until Sparky told him very slowly and clearly that he was a deaf old fool. Fizzle cuffed Sparky around the ear, making him cry. Treasure said he was a stupid little baby, and Igneous and Furnace threatened to set the place alight if everyone didn't stop arguing. Stop it, roared Flamethrower, spitting orange fire. What would the Dragon Master say? Everyone stopped shouting. Embarrassed, they shuffled from foot to foot. Clarice said it was Horace's fault. Furnace said it was Sparky. Igneous said it was Morris and he'd never liked any of them anyway, and Treasure began to cry. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the strange storm stopped. In the silence that followed, a sneering, giggly voice called out, "Hello, I'm Nidhogg. I've come to play with you." The dragons looked around, then drew back, for in the grass by their feet was a grey, slug-like creature. And it was laughing. "Stamp on it!" yelled Furnace, but they all rushed to the same spot so fast their heads cracked together. Staggering back, they glared and snarled at each other. "There he is!" Morris called out. "The slug thing's crawled up that tree and it's sneering at us." As the Nidhogg opened its mouth to laugh, green goo dripped out, and it seemed a lot bigger than before. Again the dragons rushed at it, only to collide with the tree, tangling their wings and bumping their heads once more. "Stand back," ordered Igneous, belching a huge ball of fire. This only reduced the tree to ashes and scorched Flamethrower's wings. Flamethrower dived at Igneous with bared teeth and claws. If he hadn't tripped over Clarice's tail on the way, he'd have done terrible things to the young dragon. "Stop!" yelled Treasure. "Can't you see what's happening? We've been turned inside out too. The Nidhogg has got between us." "Nonsense," said Igneous. "I've just fried him." "No, she's right," said Flamethrower. "Look." And there on the grass were thick slime trails weaving in and out, up and down and all around, even over their beautiful scales. "Ugh," said Morris, and he wiped at the muck with bundles of grass, but only succeeded in spreading the gloopy mess further. And right in front of them sat the fat, slobbering Nidhogg. The dragons were about to launch at him again when Treasure piped up. "Don't! Can't you see? He gets fatter on us arguing. The more we all rush to kill him, the more we all get in an angry tangle, and that makes everything worse. It's not each other we have to fight, it's him." Flamethrower nodded. "Right, Igneous, you and I have the strongest dragon fire. Together we will burn this thing to cinders." Flamethrower nodded. "Right, Igneous." The other dragons drew back. There was silence, except for a silly giggling noise from the creature. Flamethrower and Igneous breathed deeply, flapping their wings, and blasted their dragonfire as hard as they could. But the Nidhogg slipped away, and instead of scorching flames, only water poured from the dragon's nostrils. The others laughed. Igneous and Flamethrower swung around, flashing their claws and lashed their tails. "Silence, everyone," roared Flamethrower. "We must concentrate on the Nidhogg." Then Horace spoke up. "I could grab it, fly away and drop it a long way out to sea." Everyone agreed that would be an excellent idea. Horace crept up on the Nidhogg. It was getting bigger and laughing more loudly every minute. Horace crept closer, snatched the thing in his claws and sprung towards the clouds. But the harder he flew, the more he found he was getting nowhere. Horace struggled, flapped and wheeled, but he hardly rose above the hillside. The Nidhogg breathed in and Horace was sucked backwards. Thump! He landed in a crumpled heap upside down and covered in sticky slime. Gleefully the Nidhogg wriggled out from the dragon's claws, cackling loudly. The dragons were getting very frightened. They couldn't think what to do, and what was worse, the Nidhogg was swelling bigger every second. It would soon be longer than Sparky. Treasure called them all into a huddle. "We've tried all our weapons," she said, "but we haven't thought about what he uses." "Slime," groaned Morris. "And nasty laughter," added Clarice. "But what can we do against that?" asked Flamethrower. "We could put wax in our ears," suggested Furnace. "That's a good idea," said Treasure, "but we'll have to finish our council of war first." "I wish the Dragon Master were here. moaned Clarice. Well, he's not, Flamethrower said firmly, so we've just got to do our best and not let it matter. You're right, said Treasure. Now the Nidhogg's favourite weapon is to turn things inside out. When he's around, we argue. He makes tiny accidents feel like terrible crimes. And he turned the sky into the sea and the sea into the sky, added Morris. Then Horace, who was still shaky from his adventure, added, my flying became a horrid sucking droppiness. So, said Treasure, if the Nidhogg turns everything inside out, we've got to make things right again. How do we do that? Asked Fireworks. Perhaps I could ask him why he's doing it, suggested Sparky doubtfully. Treasure patted his back. That's a great idea. Try. It might give us a clue. Sparky felt scared. Dare I? He asked. Well, you're the only one who can, Treasure smiled. Slowly, Sparky walked to where the Nidhogg was gloating in the grass. It seemed a bit smaller now. That was comforting. It was still giggling, but in a worried sort of a way, with its mouth wide open. Sparky noticed it hadn't cleaned its teeth. What a grimy monster. Sparky took a step forward. The Nidhogg wriggled back. Sparky took another step forward. The Nidhogg squiggled even further back. Sparky looked down at the creature, first out of one eye and then out of another. Excuse me, sir, he added doubtfully. Why are you doing this? The Nidhogg looked up and sneered. Because you all think you're so big and important with your posh scales and fancy wings, but you're nothing. Nothing. But that's not true, said Sparky, beginning to cry. That's not right at all. But you're all stupid. You're nothing, the lot of you, the Nidhogg squeaked, shrinking rapidly. Well, everyone does stupid things sometimes, Flamethrower added carefully, but the Dragon Master loves us just as we are, so we can't be nothing. As he spoke, the creature became smaller and smaller. And one by one the other dragons piped up with, and we love each other really, even when we tease. That's true. Hear, hear. And the Nidhogg kept shrivelling until it was no bigger than an old balloon. It wriggled away, and with a scrabbling of stones it slid over the cliff. And with the smallest of splashes, it was gone. A few minutes later the Dragon Master arrived, his cloak flapping in the wind behind him. Oh, Dragon Master, the dragon shouted, tumbling down the slope towards him. We do wish you'd been here. We've had such a terrible time. Of course I was here, said the Dragon Master gently. But if you'd been able to see me, you'd have expected me to fight for you like baby dragons. You had to learn to tackle the Nidhogg for yourselves. And you did well. You learned that squashing, dropping and blasting him just didn't work. Whatever you did turned him upside down and inside out. The crosser you became, the bigger the Nidhogg grew. Treasure nodded. When we stopped arguing, he lost his oomph. And then I asked the Nidhogg why he was doing it, laughed Sparky, jumping up and down. Everyone clapped their wings. So all your whys have been useful at last, smiled Flamethrower, and I'm very proud of you for being so brave. Sparky grinned. Then, added Morris, when we found the Nidhogg wanted to make us feel grey and slimy like him, the answer was easy. We just had to think about the truth, just like you said. And Treasure gave him a big hug. We remembered how much you love us and how much we love each other. Then everything turned right side out again. The Nidhogg couldn't argue with that because it was all true, even if we forget sometimes. Horace roared in delight, sending flames into the sky. It worked! He shriveled up and wriggled away. Hooray! Roared the others, blasting their dragon fire too. And they made such a noise, the Dragon Master had to cover his ears.